All right, everybody, welcome to IACommand, and this is a new format that I'm trying out. We're just gonna be talking kind of about the season 4 stuff that's been previewed so far. Right now, we are 2 weeks into season 4 spoilers with the new format we're trying out, where we kind of slowly tease things out instead of just dumping everything on you guys all at once. And I thought it'd be fun to just kind of chat and talk about the stuff we've seen already. And it's been a really crazy week this week. We've got on the line, so I guess this is kind of a podcast, but I swore to myself I'd never actually do a podcast with the channel because they're really hard, but we'll try it out.
It's a panel.
Yeah, it's a panel. So on the line, we've got Chris Emmick. Chris, you're part of the steering committee. We've also got, I kind of put out an open call to the Slack to just say, hey, if anybody wants to come on and talk, go ahead and come on. And we've got Tyler Peterson, regular player, here on the line as well. So, Tyler, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. Just excited about season 4. Been having fun.
Nice. Have you been playing a lot of season 3?
Yep, So I've been doing the Dagobah Trials. I also did the Vassal. I don't remember what it was called, the end of season 3 tournament or whatever. Managed to do pretty okay. The celebration tournament, that was it. Yep. Had a lot of fun there.
Nice. So, Chris, you're on the committee, so you've seen all these cards already. But Tyler, I'm really interested in hear what you think about some of these new cards, especially since this is your first time seeing them, and you've only seen these versions. We've released them, whereas Chris and I have seen like 3 to 5 to 20 different versions of these cards as we figured out what works and what didn't work. So,
and we argued over them all.
Oh yeah, very, very cordially.
Very, very passionately, and ultimately to the benefit of everybody. Because if it wasn't for everybody caring, these cards wouldn't be as awesome as they are.
So Tyler, what's some cards that have stood out to you from the first 2 weeks of spoilers? Just kind of looking at what's spoiled. And by the way, guys, I'll put the link to the spoiler gallery for season 4, or we're calling them previews. But we've got all of the cards kind of featured in the gallery, and you can click the links to go to their specific spoiler articles. So, Tyler, what's stood out to you so far?
I think I'm really liking a lot of the new mechanics that are being added, from like the Short Trooper's Mortar to the E-Web's Overwatch ability, Loku. I think it's just a lot of interesting things are being added. So I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna like do as a player with all of these, because it's like pretty new to the game, at least the game that I'm used to. But I'm sure that you guys have been having a lot of fun trying these out and testing them.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's funny when you're like playing something and then changing it, and then versus playing something and like just trying to figure out what's good and what's not. Because then it's like,
Right.
oh, should we change this, or is it too good, or is it just us? But you talked about how we've added some of like new mechanics to the game, and Chris, you've been watching the feedback from the spoilers. That was kind of something that we've been trying to do more for season 4, and yeah, I mean, Chris, what do you think about all the new mechanics we're kind of adding to the game?
I don't think that we would have done this if it wasn't for some encouragement from the community. Adding like I've been asking in the end of season votes every year or every season, whether or not we should be adding new mechanics or how we should be changing cards and this, that, and the other. At the end of each vote, they're in a survey, and so adding like these new mechanics and stuff. The support for that has increasingly grown since season 1, and with season 2, it grew enough where I felt like we could start working on that kind of stuff. And when we got the results back for season 3, it was even bigger than that. So I really felt like we we were given the green light, and that just it was like adding it was like kicking us into hyperspace when it came to card design. I think it felt like we were free to explore the galaxy finally.
Yeah, and I'll just say from my perspective, like I didn't feel like we were really trying. I felt like we were really trying to be conservative about like adding new mechanics to the game because it's just it does open up some complexity. But like for me, something that's been really important for me is figuring out how to avoid power creep. And for me, what I've noticed is that power creep tends to come when you kind of repeat and recycle the same thing over and over again, and then you can like spam it and spam the same thing in a list together. So I felt like, well, every time there's a new mechanic or a new like something that's never been done before, it doesn't upset the game too much. So if we can, I felt like pushing into new design space was really the key to avoiding power creep and avoiding things being abused, so to speak. But that certainly meant that we've been, caught off guard by some things, and we've caught things in testing that, because it's so new, like it's uncharted territory. So, there's things you can't predict when you're doing new design space. But go ahead, Tyler.
Actually, I'm Jake.
Oh, hey, Jake.
Yeah, Jake Peterson has joined the chat.
Hello. Yeah, I'm just going to be here for a couple more minutes while I finish my drive. But yeah, I wanted to add on to that making new mechanics is also just more fun than trying to recycle old mechanics. And also, it's like FFG isn't here anymore to make new mechanics, and this game needs to evolve, and we're the only ones who are doing it.
I agree with that.
Yep,
Absolutely.
definitely.
I'm gonna have to leave in a couple minutes myself, but
all right. Well, Tyler, is there anything else you wanted to talk about while you're on, like new cards?
I love the energy coming from the committee. I'm excited to try Lando out. He looks like a lot of fun. I love his figure, so having that kind of gambling that he brings to the game, I think, is going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited about all the troopers.
Yes.
The Trandoshans, the stuff from Mandalorian. I mean, it all is just kind of exactly what you want to see in new content, new stuff added to the game. So again, I'm very excited, very happy with the work that's being done, and I can't wait to try it all out.
Awesome. Well, I hope you're able to participate in the playtest league. Tyler, are you one of the folks that really sad to see Lando lose his stun surge ability?
Not in particular. I think the Pierce makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think there's something to the fact that there was getting to be a lot of stun in IACP, especially with like Jin and lots of other Rebel figures. So taking it away from Lando, I think, only makes sense.
Hi guys, I just want to hop in and say hi.
Oh, hey Scott.
Who's there? Hello.
Hey, yeah, we were gonna hop in. I accidentally clicked on other because me and Kenny and some other guys are doing something else. But want to say hi. Haven't talked to you in a while. Hope IACP season 4 is going well.
Hey Scott, thanks for...
Yeah, we're in the middle of revealing. If the game stores are ever able to open again, we'd love to have the Utah crew join in on IACP. We're doing a lot of really interesting stuff this season.
Sure, we could talk about that. Yeah, we could definitely work something out.
You have to knock off the rust a little bit off of Kenny. I'm sure he's just like dandruff all over.
I'll tell you what, not a single one of us have played any IA since I think we played a few games before we were going to go to Worlds.
Yeah.
We haven't played since March. And then, who's playing games anyway now? Just been home.
Right, and playing online just isn't as fun.
Yeah. I mean, no, I'm surprised you're hanging out just because I'm surprised you haven't been taken by the secret police in Portland yet.
Yeah, I heard about that. I try to stay safe and avoid the tear gas.
It's probably a smart thing to do. We had a guy in Salt Lake who was wandering around trying to shoot people with a bow and arrow. That was fun.
Jesus Christ.
I heard his truck got flipped over or something.
Yeah, so this guy was trying to shoot people, so they like literally overturned his car. And then he wasn't arrested, and then he was arrested after public pressure.
Wait. He was shooting a bow and arrow from a car?
No,
No,
he got out of the car.
Oh,
crazy.
okay.
He's not Bo Duke. I mean, come on.
I thought for a second that he was like doing a drive-by arrowing or something.
I don't think it'd be funny if he like got up out of a sunroof while someone else was driving and was trying to, hit and run. But
It's funny until he hits someone.
Yeah.
yeah,
Even
well,
that is still kind of funny.
yeah. All right, well, I'll stop distracting you guys. Just want to say hi. So take it easy, stay safe.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, pleasure to talk to you, Scott. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Take
All
care,
right.
y'all.
You leaving,
Thanks
Tyler?
for jumping in, Tyler.
Hey, no problem. We'll see you later.
See you later.
Have fun.
All right, let's talk about some cards. So, Jake, are you on for a little bit?
I'm on for about 4 more minutes. I might hang out if we're having an interesting conversation when I park.
All right. Well, talk to me about Mortar Troopers, because that was your design, right?
I did like the first couple workups on it, and then we kind of worked from there. So yeah, I really liked the Mortar Trooper idea, just the idea of having a unit that can shoot using other people's line of sight. I thought was a really interesting way to go. The first couple iterations were pretty overpowered. Like in one of the test games, I killed a C-3PO at range 10, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Just by... Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, because we had +2 accuracy built in on a blue, yellow for them.
Yes, and then that was back when they used the same surges as the units they were attached to.
Yep.
So it had access to the +2 accuracy surge. I did have to use Deadeye, and I do think that Deadeye is going to be a must-take with short troopers, because then it gets them to minimum 5 range, as well as getting that mortar trooper further out.
Yep, and they're heavy weapons, so lock-on is probably going to be a must-take for that list, too.
Yeah, I mean, especially if they have other heavy weapons. So if you're taking them with ATST, although that gets pretty expensive with 2 11 cost units, or if we ever get around to fixing the heavy troopers.
Yeah, and I feel like we tooled the Mortar Trooper pretty well, so it's hitting about range 8 on average, which I think we found is like just far out enough to get from the deployment zone into the middle of the fight, but not far enough to reliably hit the opponent's deployment zone, right?
Yes, although on the upcoming Coruscant map, it might, which is one of the bigger maps that have been in rotation, I'm not sure. I think the better use for a mortar trooper would be to move, double move out of your deployment zone so that you're 6 spaces closer to the action in round 2, because it's a long way away from your deployment zone to the middle in that map.
Yep, and then we had to add that second ability because we realized that a 2x2 figure will get trapped in certain deployment zones if it doesn't have mobile or something similar.
Right.
Which was funny to me.
Jake,
Yeah.
how
So.
did you
Go
feel
ahead.
about how did you feel about how we developed the squad upgrade new mechanic? Was that your original idea too?
I kind of threw the idea out there of just because we were talking about stealing ideas from Legion, and that was one of the things I really liked about Legion was that you could take a trooper unit and then you could tack on different weapons depending on what you wanted the unit to do, and I thought that was something really cool. But obviously, when you have 40 points to work with versus 800, you have to be pretty. You don't have as much granularity to price those kinds of things.
Yeah, and we tried to do it as just a companion, right? But it just didn't work because it was such an expensive figure, and then like if you make it a companion and you kill both of the shore troopers, all of a sudden your companion can't activate anymore, and they score the points for it, which fell off.
And then you could
Right.
have trooper, and then you could have trooper units that could stand on it, which
Yeah.
doesn't make sense for a 2x2 unit. Yeah, it's just going the direction of something new, but something similar. I think was the best choice here, and I think that's why when Jake brought up the idea, we all just gleamed onto it like, yes, this makes so much sense.
Absolutely, and it adds so much possibilities for the future, like for add-ons to two-figure or one-figure units that need some help. So, like maybe Echo, or maybe just like adding on ability. It gives us more opportunities to add on interesting things in the future. So I'm really excited about the squad upgrades. And I think isn't that our first like new absolute mechanic that we've done so far?
Yeah, I mean, Overwatch tokens are debatable, but squad upgrade is kind of like the first thing that needs its own separate rules that's off of the card. So,
Absolutely.
I think when we started, I had retooled it to be an attachment, and then I had like written out all of the text for like add a figure to your group, and it activates as part of your group, and blah 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 blah. And then Jake, you were like, why don't we just make a rule for it and put all that in a separate document, and then we don't have to write it on the card. And I was like, we were like, yeah, that can work, but then there was a lot of rules stuff we had to figure out.
Who's gonna stop us?
Oh man, don't tempt him.
Don't talk too loud. FFG is listening.
Don't tempt the community. They'll figure out where we live. All right, so yeah, that's and then the shores are pretty good too, but I think we kind of just wanted them to be pretty simple, right? Just the mortar's kind of the main attraction, and the shores are just there to move 5 spaces and get line of sight.
Right. I think the shores are actually a pretty interesting unit, like having the short range, but also more speed than any other trooper in their point range is going to be it's going to be pretty interesting. And I actually got a lot of use out of them. Like, they can do some real damage with the green-red at range 3.
Mm-hmm.
They're what, like somebody in the Slack channel said, they're what Echo Troopers want to be.
Yep. Yeah, and with the squad training reroll on the red die, you're almost guaranteed to have, 2 or more damage results on your red die. So that just drastically improves damage outcomes once they do shoot.
Yeah, I think we were trying to capture kind of the flavor too of the guns that they have, which is like 2 E11s glued together, which just looks funny, and you figure, well, that probably does a lot of damage, but it probably doesn't shoot that great. So low accuracy, high damage.
Yeah.
What is it in Legion that they have, like E22s or something?
Yeah, it's been 22. They literally, like, even if you look at like the model that they used in the movie, it's basically like, it looks like they just strapped 2 E11s together and put handle on one of them.
Jake, what else?
I
was gonna say, what else before you go? What else did you design? Or you can finish your thought, but I was just gonna ask, what else did you design that we've seen so far?
So far, let me try to remember. Let's see. I wasn't too involved in any of the Trandos.
Well, you put a lot of work in with me on the E-Webs.
Yes, I did. So I was helping with that. Like, I've been wanting Overwatch tokens for a while, for the last couple seasons, because I've just an XCOM addict and wanted to be able to do something like that, but it took a while to pin down exactly what we wanted to do with it.
Yeah,
so I'm really excited to see those, and I've actually played a few games where the mortars and the E-Webs work together, and it basically makes it very hard for people to approach your deployment zone. But it's also it's not a very mobile list, so it's very much geared towards turtling up in your deployment zone and daring the opponent to come to you.
Yeah, I like that they played differently too. Like, I was worried when we started working on the mortar, because I think we had the E-Web kind of mostly done by then. I was worried like, it's just another heavy weapon that doesn't really move, but they do play quite differently from each other, just with how the shared line of sight works for the mortar and then the Overwatch works for the E-Web. So I think that came out pretty good.
Absolutely. Anyway, guys, I'm going to bow out here. I hope you have a good rest of your stream.
All right, thanks, Jake.
Thanks, Jake.
All right, well, let's
Hello?
see. Oh, who we got?
Thanks, Jake.
Oh, Jake, bye. I think he was answering the phone. Anyway,
Oh, okay.
all right, well, what else should we talk about here? I think we talked about E-Webs. E-Webs were your baby, Chris.
Yeah, E-Whips was my baby. Like I mentioned in the preview article, every community vote poll had the E-Webs polling surprisingly high. You would think that a 1x2 almost immobile can't shoot and can't move on the same activation figure people would just not want to see that in the game, but they really did, and the votes just kept piling on season after season. I wanted in my original CNE fixes document that was being passed around late in 2018 and early 2019. I had a fix very similar to what we proposed with IACP Season 4, where the E-Webs would gain some sort of beginning movement and then also gain an Overwatch-like ability. And it was because I spent an inordinate amount of time trying to get those to work, so where it felt like it was something different, but also something fun, something that if you put the points on the board, you felt like you had an opportunity to get points from.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the E-Web being popular is probably a combination of, it was featured in the best Star Wars movie, objectively best movie, and it features heavily in the first mission for the campaign for the core set. It's a big moment when the E-Web drops in Aftermath and just starts ripping the rebels apart. I mean, I think everybody remembers that from the core set campaign, so not super surprised that it was so popular, but I feel like that was definitely a tough one to design. I feel like we went through a couple of iterations in playtesting, and we're like, oh, that's not good, that's broken. And then we finally kind of got there.
Yeah, like one of the initial things that we did was that forward emplacement would grant like 6 spaces of movement at the very beginning. And initially we took a look at that and thought, that's not too bad. But then we got it on the board, and especially for Coruscant back alleys and ISB training or ISB headquarters, which are 2 kind of close quarters maps, the E-Web can really dominate lanes of approach, and even though the E-Web got a slight nerf in how much accuracy it can surge, it can still hit at fairly long distance when you've got something like was it Deadeye or other abilities that can add on some accuracy.
Yeah, I can play lock on.
Focused. Yeah.
Can play lock on. Can play Deadeye.
Yep.
We actually increased its max accuracy, if you think about it, because it used to be just +3. We brought that down to +2 and gave it a surge for +2. I think we were trying to encourage more surge token use for Imperialists, because I feel like, well, at least for me, like surge power tokens just kind of seems like people always default to either block token or damage token, and you never see the other two, right? Like evade token and surge token, except for maybe surge tokens on Vader sometimes. So I think we're trying to be like, well, we don't want it to hit all the time, but we want it to be more accurate if the Imperial player is willing to put a surge token on it.
Right.
Let's talk about, speaking of babies, let's talk about
we've got a couple of new people in the chat.
Oh, who do we got? I'm not even looking at the chat, so you gotta tell me. Who's here? I see Morgan. And who we got?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hey, Morgan.
Hey.
Yeah, and no skills. It's Peter on the chat when we talk on there. It's the
Peter.
all those Lando questions.
And then who's Nuka Duke? What's your actual name? Or you don't have to tell us if you don't want to.
Oh, I was the guy that created the first edition of the Scout Troopers, if you remember.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, welcome, everybody.
Oh. Yeah, hello.
Who wants to go first? What do you guys want to talk about? We're just talking about Season 4. I'm looking at the scum figures now.
Overpowered?
What's overpowered?
Boss suppression spam.
Oh, yeah, let's talk about Bosk. So, new Bosk, the indiscriminate fire. He can spread out a bunch of strain.
Mm-hmm. I'm just a little bit worried that since it's a 2-space radius, that it could be really overpowered, especially if you apply a surge token focus into that,
Mm-hmm.
along with his card and tools for the job.
Yep. So we did limit it, though, so you can only do 2 strain to each figure.
But with under duress.
Yeah, with under duress, it'll probably be 2 damage to each figure.
We ran Bosk like several times in internal testing, and like the Bosk that appears today is significantly nerfed than some of the ideas that we had. In fact, Noah and I went back and forth a bunch about indiscriminate fire and limiting the amount of strain that could be dealt. And it took a couple of us, it took some playtesting to kind of show out that that if it was more than 2 strain per figure, that it could get, even if it was like super low odds of doing so, then it would swing a game so dramatically that that it would be unfair. It would just be a complete wash for the opponent.
Yeah.
So, but we ran several games with it at 2 strain maximum, and we felt like it was still you could still play around it a little bit because you know what the effects of it was, and 2, if Bosk is too close, has allies that are too close, then all those allies are going to suffer it as well.
Well, Chris, I'll just say very quickly that when I was playtesting it, I was doing everything in my power to get as like many surges as I possibly could. So I'd play tools, I would focus Bosk every turn. I used his Trandoshan Terror to add the yellow, and every time I never could roll more than 2 surges, which I thought was funny. But I also noticed that like it seemed okay with just 2. He had to get close because if he misses, the strain doesn't happen. So when you were saying 2, I was like, yeah, I only ever rolled 2 anyway, and it didn't seem that bad. Like, it didn't seem super overpowered at 2 each time. So that's why I kind of agreed to the limit 2.
Well, the actual odds of rolling 3 or more, if you throw in like tools and his card, is like, I want to say like 10% or less, something like that.
Oh yeah.
So, but it's enough. Like if you play 1 in 10 games and Boss does 3 strain to a whole bunch of figures in one of those games, that's tough.
Yeah, I agree. And with under duress, it's tough. So Duke, what are your thoughts?
I've just never been a fan of the super strain train in general, like Boba, the Boba chains that had the flamethrower. I just never liked this. So in my opinion, I always hate ditching cards. I like to have them on hand.
Well,
I always take the damage.
Oh, you always take,
Like,
yeah.
With Boba's flamethrower, for me, it's almost always 2 damage this weekend. If I'm running a box list and Boss runs up, that's 2 damage on all my people with him.
Yeah. I will say that strain is. I know you said you don't like strain, but a lot of people do like like it, and from what we've got, and we know a lot of people also have wanted like Under Duress to become a playable card. We definitely made sure to test it with Under Duress, though. We wanted to make sure it wasn't too bad, and usually just ended up being like kind of like Drakata's what's their shrapnel, because they would just take the damage, and it usually would be like usually one surge, and sometimes two. They would just take the damage, and also Bosk has to get really close for it to work. UC has to get within like at least 5. Usually it's within 3 though, so he doesn't miss. But I'll be interested to see how it goes, especially with the Trandoshans. We're definitely going to be keeping an eye on Under Duress for season 4, and those lists in particular.
The good news is, these are our start of season stuff. We're going to get your testing feedback. If we get enough feedback that says, hey, look, this can get magnified too much with tools for the job and focus, and if Bosk is doing too much around 2 rounds, then we'll take a look at it and make adjustments, because we're not interested in making Bosk the end-all be-all mercenary. We're interested in making Bosk fun to play and fun to play against.
And we also wanted to fill that.
Do surge tokens account towards that as well?
No, it explicitly says equal to the number of surges rolled.
Yeah, so it's the same as Tress from, what is it, Lothal, Tyrants of Lothal.
Yeah.
Morgan, what are you thinking about season 4? Anything that has stood out to you?
Well, I've wanted short troopers for a while, so I was super duper excited this morning. I actually audibly went when I saw you guys had put that out. I'm also really excited to play them. I can't help but feel though that like I looked at them and I'm like, man, this is what Echo Base Troopers should have been.
Mm-hmm.
Like if Echo, like I didn't know that this is what I wanted for Echo Base Troopers until I saw it, and I was just like, yeah, Echo Base Troopers with another movement and some innate accuracy would probably actually make them playable as well. So I wonder, like, because there was a lot of discussion over the past couple of days about revisiting old deployment, and you guys had mentioned that somebody had the Echo Base Troopers as their baby that they wanted to make better.
Yep, that's Chris.
Anything to say about that? Yeah.
Gee, Noah, just out me like this.
Chris loves Echo Base. I mean, I used to play them in tournaments. They were good back in the day. I think they won. They made it to the finals of a world championship.
Yeah.
But yes, Echo Base Troopers are my babies. They're my precious sons. Right now, they are just way behind the power curve. In our steering committee discussions, everybody wants the same things, right? We all want to have fun, brand new deployments. We want to be able to fix older deployments that we haven't touched, and everybody, I'm sure, has a list of existing IACP changes that, if we had a second chance to redo, knowing what we know now, we would redo them. I think I explained in the Zion's Finest chat that, the thing about season 1 was we wanted to make a whole bunch of mainly points changes because we felt like that's where the community wanted us to focus on. Is just changing points, change everything that could be easily changed, and see what the meta looked like after that. And so we ended up implementing or pushing forward a whole bunch of changes that were just point changes that were not necessarily the best that we could have done. And because we didn't know that we were going to make these things like IACP approved and never and potentially never come back to them, we just went ahead and put them up anyway, thinking that we could revisit them. So
Yeah.
so there might be a bunch of the season 1 stuff that we
Hey,
revisit. A lot of
Chris.
it though, we want to keep it.
Yeah, I'll just say to put a bow on that. The committee is currently looking at ways to improve or possibly look at older cards that may need updates, with maybe not necessarily changing the cards, but through other means, but also how to do that. But let's talk. I want to talk about season 4. Let's go back to season 4.
Are you guys gonna make any more Rebels cards?
Oh yeah. And I know it's a bit lopsided right now, but we've got a bunch more Rebels coming in the next 2 weeks of spoilers. So
Because I was really excited for Lando, but then I'm like, they're going to do some spoilers.
yes, we have more. There's going to be more Rebels for the next 2 weeks. So
Well, we do have, if I can tease a little bit, we just cracked the lid open on Rogue One for this season.
yeah,
That was my one.
Yeah.
I started seeing the Mandalorian characters. I was like, are they just gonna skip Rogue One?
we definitely have Rogue One figures coming that aren't just the short troopers. So
Fantastic.
I mean, I saw short troopers. I just,
Jim Cassian.
we won't say which ones because we couldn't fit all the Rogue One characters into the season. So we'll keep that as a surprise. But I think definitely next Wednesday, I would say. Stay tuned.
All right.
I'm excited to see E-Webs with them Royal Guards. Aesthetic is supposed to be blocking.
Yeah. Yeah, that's we're going to be monitoring. I think that's something that came up at the end of season 3 is our improvement of Guardian and the viability of Royal Guards, the elite Royal Guards now. So that's something that we'll be keeping a real close eye on. Letting an E-Web have a block 2 seems kind of weird, but at the same time, it's basically it can still be very played around. Even with the Overwatch token, your opponents are going to have ways to get near it and make those 2 blocks not that great.
I'll just
Especially
say
Jedi.
I'll say I play tested a lot of games against Derek, who was playing the E-Web with Royal Guards, and I was able to kill the E-Web not too difficult. Usually it went down in about 2 attacks because it's still an 8 health figure for 6 points, so the blocks help it, but it does die. It's not quite as tough as the guards themselves.
And that does include all the tricks of Zillow and all that mess.
Yeah, definitely. What did you guys think of the Mandalorian stuff?
I like the idea of the child. I just wish he'd make a command card.
You wish what?
Command card for the child.
Oh, a command card for a companion. That would be interesting.
I mean, I was disappointed when Delicious B. Crumb didn't either, or a figure.
Well, that's one of the things about designing for Star Wars properties that you don't actually have the license for, is you kind of have to wait and see what the show does instead of getting kind of that heads up from Disney or Lucasfilm about, hey, here's our big binder of where this story is going, and so you can design your stuff around that.
Chris, I never
yes.
thought of making a unique command card for a companion, but you can totally do that in the rules. Throw that in the hopper.
Oh yeah.
Throw that in the hopper
yeah.
for season 5.
That's what I'm building to here.
The
We
child-
have no idea what the child is going to do in season 2. If the child does something awesome in season 2, there's going to be a command card or something.
The child definitely doesn't have enough abilities as it is.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, well, we're probably gonna have to make like a teenage child, right? Isn't it gonna be like Groot? It's like baby Groot, teenage Groot. They're gonna make teen
No,
teen
don't
Yoda.
no. I was just thinking like a funny command card, like protector, or like some weird command card for the child that would get him like a force push or force throw, or like the flamethrower thing that he did in the final.
It can totally play force push though. I think
Yep.
no, it can't because it's not a rebel figure.
Oh, right.
But it can play like telekinesis and
Telekinetic throw.
Yeah.
Deflection. What else?
it can play knowledge and defense.
Force surge. We were actually
No, it can't play
kind
knowledge
of
and defense.
concerned about force surge at once.
Oh, that's right. It can play force surge. Yeah, that was funny when that happened, but it was kind of thematic though, because like I think originally we actually have an ability that was like a mini force choke, because in the TV show he force chokes Cara Dune. Spoilers everybody. Sorry. Shoot, sorry. But he does do a little baby force choke in the show, so we had that for a bit. But so I think we were like, yeah, force surge is probably okay.
Yeah, I mean, you got that famed scum force user list, right?
I mean,
Just maul on the child.
Chris, you should mute me. I think you should. Can you mute me? I can't. Oh, okay, never mind. Nothing to see here. What were you saying, Morgan?
I said, well, we've got that famed scum force user list.
Oh.
Just maul on the child.
Ha 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 ha. Yeah, that's definitely not a thing right now.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's not a thing right now, and you'll find out why.
No,
soon.
yeah.
Shh. No, I'm not digging. I'm not digging for spoilers. It's not what's happening right now.
What do you guys think about the Mando's disruptor rifle ability?
I'd have to play with it to see. It is like on one hand, it is kind of nice in a world of Zillow and like just keeping figures alive to have something that is just like anti that. But I do want to reserve judgment until I've actually played with it and against it to see if I like it then.
Yeah, I'm really curious how people take to it, because it did end up like, it didn't start off that way for sure, but it ended up kind of going that direction. And then I think I was like, hey, this is actually really good against Zillow, and Zillow's kind of almost an issue. Like, it's a bit of an issue right now, and just we're kind of experimenting with like, what does...
It's always been an issue.
Yeah.
Well, Zillow's the best card in the game, especially when you're using Royal Guards and the Inquisitor, and you can get a minimum 3-block roll with guards adjacent to him, and then you can pop another block on there for minimum 4-block roll with Zillow and negate Pierce 2.
Yeah.
Preaching to the choir.
You don't have
I did it to Derek once or twice. Trust me.
Yeah,
did not enjoy.
Yeah, Zillow is a topic of discussion currently, but
Preaching to the space choir.
anyway, I mean, Isaac's having fun with it, so that's what matters.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I actually thought you guys were going to put the inconspicuous keyword on the child, the one that makes it so he can't be shot while in the same space as a friendly figure.
So we tried stuff like that. The problem was if you didn't have the like damage prevention, there's just so many grenades and flamethrowers and cleaves all flying around that it's so easy to just deal damage to the child and just kill it. I'm gonna scroll down to the child on my screen here. This was kind of the solution we ended up with, where we wanted people to be able to like deactivate the child, so to speak, where, you know, to kind of stop it from being able to force heal or be able to use its defensive ability. But we didn't want people to just be able to easily remove it from the board, so it stopped affecting the game, because we really wanted that like pick up mechanic to come into play once it was like its owner was gone and not protecting it.
Okay.
So
when it gets defeated, is it incapacitated as well, or is it just gone off the field?
So if you can figure out a way to defeat it, like which probably the owner will have to like let you do, it just gets removed from the field. So
Okay.
it's gone. But we made it so that, you know, it's very unlikely that the person playing with the child will not have a chance to incapacitate it before it would be defeated. And that way it kind of sticks around. So you can attack it and they can incapacitate it in response. And then you don't have to worry about it anymore. So it's like not an issue. But it's still going to stick around. So when the guardian that was carrying it dies, somebody can pick it up for a victory point.
Yeah, it becomes the football at that point. It's everybody dives on the football, and let me stress something that I said earlier this week on Zionist Finest chat. We reached for the stars literally for this design. I kind of came up with the initial ideas of, it should be a helpful companion, but it should also be a football. It should be something that that adds objective play to the game.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
we hammered and hammered and hammered at it, and I didn't think that it was ever going to get done. Like I couldn't figure it out. And Noah stepped in and started down the path that led us to this. And it's between him and Derek and
Jake.
And
Jake.
Yes,
helped
Jake.
A lot.
Yeah, between the three of them, we got to this, which is exceptionally playable and thematic, and it's just, I am just very proud of their work.
It's really it's really fun when you actually play with it. It's just it's tough when you're just reading the card, I think. Which is why I put up that video that kind of demos like here's what it looks like when it's actually in the field. And I want to say that the football mechanic was really the focus, right, Chris? Like we were really like that. You were really like, I want it to be a football. I want it to be this thing that everybody's scrambling to pick up because that was kind of what it was in the show. So when it was too easy to remove it from play by killing it, that usually got lost too quickly and too often. So, and I think that also, like, when you look at the other companions in Skirmish, like, what's the monkey thing from Jabba's palace?
Salacious Bikram.
Yeah, Salacious Bikram. Like, he doesn't see play because he's got nothing to keep him from just kind of being erased from the board as an afterthought, I think. And so we really focused on like making sure the child stayed relevant during the game, and this is kind of where we ended up with. I think there's some knobs we can still tweak based on playtesting.
I thought you guys were going to give it insignificant, the thing that says you cannot be the target of attack while in the same space as a friendly figure.
No, like I said, we tried like making it not attackable, but then it just died to like random damage from grenades and stuff.
Though, because if you have like a multiple trooper activation, you kill the figure in the space of it, then you can shoot it with another figure. I meant like with all of it on top of that.
Oh, I see.
Mm-hmm.
There was also points where if we made it too hard to deal with, like if we made it too immune to things, then it felt like you couldn't interact with it, and it felt very frustrating that like your opponent was able to heal Boba Fett every turn, like with it, or do something similar. So we had to find a way to keep the counterplay interesting. I mean, like you said, a multi-figure group could potentially defeat the thing standing on top of it and then kill it, or kill the child. It's definitely something. It's something we're gonna be like tweaking based on the feedback we get, and definitely looking at logs and like if people are using it wrong or misplaying it, and it's just too complicated, then we'll have to come back and take a look. But I hope it works, because it was really fun when we were playing it in this version. Like I thought it was really fun card, and just led to really interesting gameplay of do you attack the child and try to get it off off the, or get its effects out of there, or do you just try and kill the figure carrying it, but then you have to deal with force exhaustion and force heal? So I don't know. I hope it's fun. I hope it works. I hope it's fun to play for everyone else, because I thought it was fun the way it was.
I know that in Star Wars Legion they have a couple different ways to gain objectives, points through bounty or through secret missions. Is objective play something that you want to add more to for Imperial Assault in future, or even more in this season?
I mean, I think so. I think we're trying to just find as many new unexplored design spaces as we can, and moving and attacking is like the basic thing in Imperial Assault that's been done to death. So anything that we can find that changes that or adds to that in a new way is definitely something we want to look at. So,
definitely, and then also not reusing a lot of the existing stuff too. Like if you look at the Mandalorian's wrist flamethrower, we wanted it to be different. We didn't want it to be, oh, look, it's another flamethrower that does 2 damage and 1 strain and weakens, So, looking at how he's used it in the show, it's been not too spectacular effect. Sometimes it shoos people away or sets something on fire. Sometimes the blurg eats them anyway. So we wanted to make it where it could be usable by giving him the mobility, and then just not as heavy hitting as Boba's.
Okay.
If you guys want to talk objectives, do you want to talk about the map that we announced?
I actually have to run twice, but thank you. Keep doing that stuff. Good stuff.
Thanks for jumping on, Morgan.
Yeah, Morgan.
We're going soon, but what's the new map? I haven't been on the Slack in ages.
So we just announced the new map that's going to rotate out is Coruscant Senate Office from the Palpatine pack.
So that one's going in, and what's rotating out?
So Coruscant Back Alleys is going to rotate out.
Yes, I can run smugglers for once without being shot to death by stupid gangsters that I can never kill.
Yeah, so the current map rotation is going to be Endor, which is the Taro pack, ISB headquarters from Blaze, and then now Coruscant Senate Office. And we're going to be doing a 4-month rotation schedule.
Okay.
So no more no rotation for 8 months to 12 months like we've seen, and no more maps staying in for 18 to 2 years.
Okay. All right. Well, I got to get going. Thanks for all the info, and I'm looking forward to get some Rogue One heroes. You better have some effect that makes them all die in the end of the game, or if they die, you win the game.
That's what their Spectre Cell card's gonna do.
Oh, the Spectre Cell card. No.
Yeah, that's what their team card is gonna do. They all defeated.
Rebel Pathfinders, that means are coming.
We'll see.
All right. Yeah, maybe I'll see you on the game table.
All right. Thanks for joining.
Cool, man. Thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, no problem. All right, bye.
All right, Chris. I think I'm gonna be wrapping up pretty soon here, but let's just finish off.
Is there anything that we haven't discussed that you would like to discuss? I would like to talk about the Trandoshan hunters.
Sure. Yeah, Trandoshans. Here we go. So, I mean, these were kind of one and done pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
But we did have one thing that we added late. So I think the change was we dropped them 2 points, and we gave them regenerate from Bosk,
Mm-hmm.
and they were feeling pretty good at that point. I think we raised their health to 9, and then we were like, oh, they're a little too tanky now. So.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then later on, it was like, why would you play these over weak ways? So we tried to figure out how we could make their attacks a little more consistent, and adding the +1 damage to the Surge for Bleed ended up being a really nice fix, because number one, it gave them a way to get around Zillow, because otherwise their attack was totally stuffed by a Zillow exhaust. Their surges, They couldn't do anything with their surges. And then also it gave him more of a reason to apply bleed for like under duress lists. And I think under duress is something that people have been trying to make work for a long time. And I think like Trandos and Bosk are going to be the premier figures for under duress lists, which by the way is a 2-point upgrade. So it's not like it's not without cost to play that card in a list.
Yeah, if you run either 2 sets of Trandos or 1 set of Trando and Bosk, you're with under duress, you're looking at 18 points for 2 figures and or 3 figures or 4 figures, 2 deployment groups, and an upgrade.
Yep.
And so that with mercenaries usually wanting to jump around at 8 activations, you're locking yourself into 7, which means that you could get out activated pretty easily by other mercenary or rebel groups.
Yep, it's definitely it's definitely a list that's not without weaknesses. Like you said, the low activation count because most of the deployment groups are pretty expensive. Mm-hmm. And then they're also very close range figures. Like they have to be within 3 to do anything useful, and they really want to be. They're almost like melee figures that have kind of like a alternate attack that's weaker, but they really shine when they're hitting adjacent. But that means they're kind of like melee speed 4 melee figures. So there's definitely a cost to using them, and we did play them a lot. I know I played the Trandos and Bosk a lot together, and I'm actually really excited because their brawler trait's really important. Because we've got there's definitely some more brawler support coming down for season 4, so that's going to be important.
Yeah, and one of the things that I thought was interesting about the development of Trandoshan Hunters is that we threw out I think it was season 2. I don't think we did it for season 3. It was season 2. We had a Trandoshan Hunter fix implemented for it, and then because there were so many cards and the community felt a little bit overwhelmed by so many cards to play in that season, we ended up pulling the Trandoshans back. And part of the reason why we did is because some of the feedback that we got about it was our had changed APC Scattergun to apply only 1 damage instead of 2, but we upped the ability for the Trandoshan Hunters to do more damage from range. And surprisingly, there was a lot of people that were like, no, that's not what we really want Trandoshan Hunters to do. We want them to get next to something and apply +2 damage to it and make it die. And so when we came back to it, that was one of the things I know that I brought up in our discussion was, well, we kind of have to keep ACP Scattergun the same and try to keep the same feel of the Trandoshan Hunters the same. How do we do that? And of course, the obvious choice was to give them regenerate.
Yeah, I think we keyed into kind of what their playstyle was, and then amplified it. And I think that's really something we've been trying to focus on for existing figures. Is like what is this figure's original identity that like FFG was trying to establish, and that the lore fits, and then how do we amplify that and get it to be competitive rather than trying to take something and fit it into a different role that it wasn't really designed for, but that we know is good. So I think we've been doing pretty good with that for existing figures.
I think so.
I think we kind of covered most of the stuff. Do you want to just talk about the map real quick?
Yeah, let's do that.
So so Senate Office, it came in the Palpatine pack. It's a pretty large map. It's about the size of Uskru Entertainment District, for those that remember that map. Uses the same tiles too, but it's a very different layout, even though it uses some of the same tiles. For one thing, it doesn't have automatic doors like Uskru does, so if you want to hide behind a door, there's really no reason you can't do that, which is nice. Because with Uskru, if you hid behind one of the doors, your opponent could be like, well, here, it's open now, you're going to get shot. But they can't open doors from across the map like you can in Uskru. And then the missions are really interesting. So the first one is Battle Battle at Dawn, and I'm going to zoom in here to this little graphic. So these gray boxes are the objectives for that, and each of them, if you control them at the end of the round, you get 1 point for each one you control. But there's 10 total, so 10 victory points up for grabs. And then the interesting thing is, at the start of the mission, you have 3 tokens on the mission itself, and you get -3 accuracy or -1 accuracy for each token. So basically round 1, all figures are shooting with a -3 accuracy penalty, and then round 2 there's a -2 accuracy, and then round 3 it's -1. So that doesn't go away till round 4, and we know most games last about only 3 to 4 rounds at the most. So, and then I guess we'll talk about the other mission. The other one is the escort mission. I forget what it's called. I think it's priority extraction.
Yes.
So that one, you have 3 senators, and for each one at the end of the round, for each one that you have that matches your deployment zone, you get 2 points for each one that's still alive at the end of each round. And then you can push them if they are within, I think, 3 spaces. Oh, they're only worth... Hold on.
Yeah, they're only worth 1 point if they're alive.
Oh, yeah. So they gain... Here, I got it now. They gain 1 victory point for each one that's alive. And then they can move up to 4 spaces to be adjacent to a friendly figure. And interestingly, that includes themselves. So they can, follow each other around, which I thought was funny. You can, make a little train of senators that move themselves without having to have a figure. But they can move farther if you've got your own figure there, because they're considered friendly figures. And then if you can get them to the extraction point, which is in the middle of the map on the sides, so there's two extraction points on opposite ends, you get 6, 4, 5 victory points, which is quite a lot, but it's definitely tough. They're 7 health, and they have automatic block and evade. So they're actually pretty decently statted, where you probably would have to put 2 attacks into them, or 1 really good attack to kill them. Yeah, so what do you think of this map, Chris? Because you said you played a lot of this. The funny thing is, when we were picking the map, I was playtesting all these different maps, trying to figure out which one to rotate. I never actually played this one, so... What's your thoughts? I've done a lot of analysis of it, because I'm hoping to put out another analysis video for this map like I did for Endor, but I'm curious to hear what your experience with it has been.
I am happy to share it. So I actually started playing this map when we got Heart of the Empire out and we got Palpatine. I looked at all the maps and I thought, okay, this is going to be the one that rotates in next. Turned out to be Uskru Entertainment District, so I was off on that. But I looked at this one, I was like, this is a very competitive map. What makes it interesting is all the impassable and blocking terrain that is spread out across it. And you have above or below your deployment zone, you have a little hallway that you can stage raids out of that is relatively safe. Then all the middle tiles, of which there are 3. There's the ones to the left and the right that have the extraction zones for priority extraction, and then you have the little middle piece with the huge round ball in the middle. The middle piece actually works really well as a place to return to after engaging into one of the bigger rooms. And the bigger rooms are open enough that when you have to be in them, you are putting yourself at risk. So it's a really fun design because the middle room, the little tiny middle room, you can contest that hard, but there's only a little bit of space in there to contest. Whereas if you go into the side bigger rooms, there's not a whole lot of cover that you can utilize. The Battle at Dawn was especially fun because that was before IACP started trying to fix melee units, and so there wasn't a whole lot of our changes where they increased like movement or whatnot. So you could be aggressive with like a riot trooper or an echo base trooper and know that that figure is probably going to be okay until the end of the round two. Anybody that was not like Han was going to have to get in very close in order to assure that the attack hits. With priority extraction, like you mentioned, the senators do not just fall. You have to pour some attempt into getting a senator down. But by doing that, you are not attacking the opposing army. So there's a really great risk reward balance between that. And you could, depending on whether or not your senator has taken damage and where it is late in a round, you could make a case for running a senator into one of the big areas that doesn't have very much cover, and then using your figures to try to cover it, because you're 10 victory points away from scoring, from winning. So just every round that I played on this map was interesting on both scenarios, and I think that's what makes a great competitive map.
Yeah, and I think that it's going to be good to have a big map back in rotation again. I think that, like with the previous rotation, we had just 2 small maps, and then Endor, which is like has this very like focused on controlling the center room that has a very blocking line. Like line of sight is very short on that map if you're focused on controlling that middle room. So I think that this map is going to be good for kind of bringing that ranged play and line of sight play back into the game. But because, like you said, one of the missions has such a steep penalty on accuracy, we're going to see still melee figures being able to compete, but there's going to be more opportunities for ranged figures to kind of do their thing as well. So, yeah, I'm excited to have another rotation. I've loved Coruscant Back Alleys. I thought that was a great map, but it's definitely
that has been one of the best competitive maps I think we've had in competitive skirmish. It just, both missions are interesting. It's small enough that that melee figures can get in, but it has enough blocking so that ranged figures can find hidey holes to shoot. There's that one space where a good ranged figure can really control a diagonal going into the other deployment, going from the lower right deployment into the upper deployment, and that's really the only imbalanced part of that map, but everything else was just really good.
Yeah, and I feel like that map did really last. Like it had a lot of strategic depth to it, that it was able to stay interesting for the length of its run. Like, for example, that tiny like 2x2 room in the bottom corner that has the 2 posters in it, like nobody in the beginning, nobody went there. Like it was, you just didn't go down to that area. There was no reason. But then I felt like as the meta progressed, people started trying it and realized you could do really interesting like flanking tactics if you use that room and went through those 2 doors. And also that there was a lot of points at the posters down there, because and I just thought that map did really good for how long it had to stay in the meta. I think we had that map for like, it was March 2019, so it's been like 14, I don't know, 16 months or something.
Almost a year and a half, yeah.
Yeah, so, but I think it's definitely like time to retire it.
Yep.
But it's been a really good map for having to stay that long, and I think it's going to be good that we're going to just have maps only stay in rotation for 12 months at a time, so we don't have to, like, it doesn't have to be a hit every time. And if we do get one that's kind of like like, well, we only have to deal with it for 12 months max. And hopefully we don't pick one like that. Hopefully there's enough choice in the remaining maps that FFG has created. I mean, there's a lot of stinkers and ones that just don't work anymore with the way figures are statted now. Like a lot of the old maps from before Jabba's Realm. They just
Training Grounds.
Oh yeah, man! Training Grounds was so fun back in the day. Like, it was such a good map, but now, you just got Vader up in your grill, and you're just like trapped in this deployment zone of death because he can just walk into your.
Not even the deployment zone of death. It's like just a little escape area. There's nowhere to escape to. It's like even the way that you're supposed to escape, you can't get there. It's just Vader is there, ready to give you a hug.
Yeah, you get trapped in this cave like the Last Jedi. It's awful. Anyway, yeah, just saying that, like, some of the older maps, they just don't account for, like, either the really long range that figures can hit now, round one, or just like the super powerful close range brawlers that are in the game, like Vader and Onar and Boba Fett. Like, they're just the zones are too close to each other, or something like that. So we definitely have had to weed through a lot of stinkers and be like, well, this one doesn't work for the current power level, but there's some good ones. There's quite a few good ones left, and I'm excited to start rotating them in and get to try out new experiences, because new maps, playing on a new map, it like changes the game, totally changes the dynamics and the balance of the game in interesting ways.
Yeah, so. like Nukaduke said a few minutes ago, he just couldn't wait for Coruscant back alleys to back out, because the Triple Cross mission was just so difficult for the smuggler list that he wants to play.
Yeah,
And so that's one of the things I love about Imperial Assault is that our competitive scene is asymmetric in the sense of how we can change the meta. Not only are we improving deployment cards with IACP and adding new cards and adding new command cards to kind of change things up, but we're taking over the competitive map rotation, and so we're able to add things that would make certain deployments a little bit stronger and make certain deployments that were strong not the optimal choice for the map. And so the player then has the opportunity to go, okay, I'm used to playing these weak ways. How do they work on this new map? And if can I find a way to work them? And if that's not the case, maybe I should look at Trandoshans. Maybe I should look at something else. It keeps challenging our players, and that's what we want to do. Because if you're not being challenged in a game, then to me that's not being fun.
Yep, absolutely. That sense of growth is one of the most fun things you can experience in gaming. Well, I think that's probably a good place to wrap it up. Sound good to you, Chris?
Sounds good to me, man.
All right. I hope my audio doesn't sound terrible and this ends up being usable, but that was episode 1 of what I'm going to call the committee cast. And I don't know when the next one's going to be, but probably not. It's probably not going to be a regular thing, but whenever I feel like talking, we can just ping everybody and be like, hey, let's do a cast in 5 minutes, and I'm sure it'll work out great.
I mean, I'm sure that personally, I would love to do this again once all of season 4 has come out, and then we can kind of chew the fat on what happened with it, and chew the fat on some of the things that didn't make the cut.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's definitely in the cards. We'll do another one once the next 2 weeks are finished and we've got the full season 4 spoiler.
Yeah, once our blood pressure has finally come down from releasing all this stuff.
Yeah, you guys are all so darn critical. Jeez.
Look, we are giving you cake. Love the cake.
Designing cards is hard.
Doesn't matter if you don't like chocolate. Take the chocolate cake.
Man, Chris, designing cards is hard. You didn't tell me that when you invited me to this project.
Well, You know, I want everybody to discover the pain that I have suffered all this time.
We'll give everybody a rotation through the committee.
No, seriously, yeah. Everybody just takes their prison sentence.
It's punishment.
Into the committee.
It's a punishment for you guys, for everyone.
Working on the chain gang.
All right, Chris. Well, we'll talk to you later. Thanks everybody for listening.
Thanks, Noah. This was fun.